Hi everyone, it's Dave here and I hope you're doing well. Just a reminder, if you do enjoy my content and you'd like to see more videos, feel free to hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell and you'll be advised every time I release another video such as this one. So there appears to be a growing pressure and a growing clamour, and yes, I do use the word clamour, from large sections of the political world and the media for another national lockdown. Now, either these people who are calling for blanket lockdowns are utterly deranged or they're so out of touch with reality it just beggars belief, because the effects on society already this year, which staggeringly some people still can't see, are utterly horrifying. And I really do think that another blanket lockdown, another national lockdown, we've already got one in Wales, of course. Another blanket lockdown will be utterly catastrophic for the people in this country. Now, notwithstanding, the virus clearly is making a comeback, albeit the acceleration of the disease is nowhere near the levels that we saw in March and April. Although we may see a longer peak, who knows? But it comes back to the question again. I mean, there are so many questions that this year raises. The response of our politicians and our media and the response of ourselves that this year has raised. What does it say about the people who are in power? And more importantly, what does it say about us? The people who must always make sure that those who are there to serve us are kept in check, which we've not done. But the main question that I've always asked is, in the face of what, in the grand scale of things, is a very minor threat, COVID-19, compared to the threats that our predecessors and our ancestors have had to face, and the threats that mankind throughout the ages have had to face, a virus with a very, very, very low death rate and that targets primarily very old and sick people is a minor threat. So the question was one of proportionality. In the face of this very minor threat, were the measures that were implemented and wholeheartedly embraced and accepted by the public proportional or not? Not whether who was right and who was wrong, but were the measures proportional? That for me was the main question. Was the fact, did we exchange far too much of our freedom for a temporary illusion of safety? That was the question for me at the start, and it's still the question now. And I keep coming back to the conclusion that there is an ulterior motive behind all of this, and that COVID-19 is a convenient excuse to implement measures on society which, if the population weren't so intimidated, scared and brainwashed, would no way accept. Now, I did a video in it was about July. I read a government report. It was about 100 pages long, entitled Preparing for a Challenging Winter 2020-2021. I did a two-part video. You can go back and have a look at it if you want, where I pulled out and summarised the main points that were made in this report. And it made for terrifying reading, not only in terms of the plans that the government had for us in terms of further removing our freedoms, which they have started to implement, but also the effect on the NHS this year. And I remember when we did have the peak of the epidemic in March, April, first part of May, the government itself told us every single day via its daily press conferences that it was coping very well with the virus and with the massive increase, and it was, in hospital admissions. The NHS did step up to the plate. It did that well. Resources were diverted, and it absorbed the influx of patients. Now, I've talked a lot about the downside of that, and how there was an overreaction, a mass overreaction, and a mass overreach, and a withdrawal of crucial medical services. We didn't need to save the NHS. Like everything else in this world seems to have been subverted. The idea that the population is there to save the NHS, a population who pays for the NHS. Well, no, the NHS exists to save us when we need the NHS. But again, it's just another basket case idea that's been implanted in the minds of many people, I think. So, coped with the first spike of the virus, but the NHS neglected terribly other people with other health conditions, and that was and continues to be absolutely unforgivable. And what the strategy is now, what's the strategy now? Further lockdowns, further removals of freedoms, further 24-hour indoctrination of the public, which has been going on for 8 months now. I mean, ask yourself, is that normal? It appears either that we, or those that make the decisions, are unable to pursue a different path, or are unwilling to, or this is all part of one great big plan. And coming back to the NHS, I do worry about the NHS for this winter, having read that government report and taken into account a few factors. First of all, people call it a second wave. No one ever explains what a second wave is, so I'm not going to use that ridiculous term. Let's call it a moderate resurgence of the virus, which is currently taking place now. Incidentally, if someone can qualify to me what is a second wave, so then, I can understand the term, please enlighten me. Anyway, a resurgence of the virus, a influx of patients with other viruses, as is normal, October, November, December, January, February, March, every single year. I think a resurgence of COVID-19 as a result of it being suppressed far too much in the summer months. And also, crucially, the poor people who, through removal of medical services and lack of support, are going to be presented to the NHS now with illness and injury, whether mental illness or physical illness, because they've been let down by the NHS. So, for those reasons, I think the NHS is in for a pretty terrible winter. And as I said in my video in the summer, I certainly don't want to end up in hospital, or anyone I know will love to end up in hospital this winter. So there we are. Now, going back to the virus itself and the measures that are implemented, it's this. Yeah, a disease. I mean, another cliche is has the cure been worse than the disease? Well, undoubtedly, in my mind, yes. When I think about the money that's been spent on indoctrination campaigns, and if you don't realise you're being indoctrinated, you're being indoctrinated. And on a flawed and corrupt test and trace system. Billions and billions and billions of pounds of taxpayers' money. When I think where that money could go, yes, some of it on increasing NHS resources, absolutely, 100%. Maybe some of it into investigating childhood diseases and research into that, research into cancer. I mean, let's remember, this does need to be remembered. I feel that we have, through a combination of propaganda and messaging 24 hours a day. I feel that almost society's views and certainly their behaviours are completely out of tune with how I've previously observed people and who they are. One of the weird and bizarre features as well associated with this is now our attitude towards death. And I understand death isn't a subject that people want to talk about. It can actually be useful talking about death. Well, death, I'm not going to get into that. But death comes to us all. And statistically, if you are young and fit, you're less likely to die of most things. We must remember that the vast majority of people who are dying of COVID-19 are old and have existing medical conditions, notwithstanding the fact that we still don't know whether COVID-19 is the cause of death or whether something else is the major cause of death and COVID-19 is cited as the reason on the death certificate. We still don't know that. And that's another massive question that needs to be asked and that needs to be answered. And it is not being heartless and it is not being nasty in any way to recognise and make the admittance that every winter a large number of people, older people, will die of viruses. It happens every single year. Those most at risk are those in the older age group. I mean, the average death of the people who've died from COVID-19 or with COVID-19 so far is 81, which is around about the average life expectancy in the UK at the moment. A life expectancy that, incidentally, I would expect to start reducing in the next few years as the economic and health and social catastrophe unfolds, unless there's a massive change in public perception and behaviours. And it's this, I've talked about this in other videos as well. This, when you make that admission that I just did there, that yes, older people are more likely to die and COVID-19 is massively disproportionately affecting old people. The standard stock response is, you heartless bastard. But no, it's not. No one's life is worth more than anybody else's life. But what must be remembered and taken into account is that in engineering a response to protect the most old and vulnerable, that, by the way, was an exceptionally poor one because we've ended up not protecting them. And what we've done is we've opened the door for disaster to strike across all age groups, which it is doing. Not only from a health perspective, but from an economic perspective, with people losing their jobs, their livelihoods, their businesses. From a mental health perspective, with depression, anxiety on the rise, and suicides. As well as I've often talked about, the destructive and toxic effects on societies and our communities and the way we interact with each other. All for a virus that has a death rate of, I think it's about 0.08% now, something like that. Pretty much vanishingly small. And again, I always like to add some balance. For me, it was never a case of there's not a virus. There's a lot of people, but some people think that there isn't, that the COVID-19 doesn't exist. I don't fall into that camp. For me, it was, what does it say about us as to how we've responded? What does it say about our ability to take those in power and hold them to account? What does it say about our ability to manage risk? What does it say about our ability to show resilience? What does it show about our ability to apply perspective? What does it show about our ability to show empathy and care to all in society, not just those who are suffering from COVID-19? What does it say about our lack of ability to question? What does it say about our lack of ability to engage in thoughtful and insightful debate? What does it say about our ability to be able to form our own opinion and not take on the opinion, mostly lies, of the mainstream media? So there we are. I'm worried, as I've been worried for a number of months now, about what this winter is going to bring. Not just, as I say, the pressures on the NHS, but also how I think society is going to further disintegrate. More people are going to lose their jobs, more freedoms are going to be taken away. I fully expect masks to be mandated outside, fully expect another lockdown. I wish people would wake up. I wish people would realise we don't have a God-given right in our lives to not face a threat. We don't have that right. If nature gives us something to deal with, we must deal with it in a more mature and resilient way, in a way that doesn't massively impinge on everybody's lives, in a way that doesn't spend our children's money, in a way that doesn't take away their freedoms, in a way that doesn't make them scared. We don't have that right. Threats, large or small, will come. And one day, there will come a disease that has the ability to take out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the world population. That will happen one day. Whether in 100 years or whether next year, this is not it. So they're my thoughts for today. I'll say again, everybody, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. Challenge beliefs, challenge beliefs, challenge beliefs. Everything is on the table here. Everything must be considered. There is no truth. But there may be a monstrous lie. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.